You're listening to Health Professional Radio. Welcome and thank you for joining us for another segment. You know, as much of the world's focus this past year has been on making progress in fighting, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, there are some folks who remain focused on some other raging epidemics that existed well before the emergence of COVID-19 and continue to worsen over time. Our guest this evening is Mr. Rohan Palekar. He's joining us as CEO of 89 Bio. It's a clinical stage pharmaceutical startup. He's joining us to talk about NASH. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Rohan Palekar.
Thank you, Neil. It's great to be on the radio with you. Welcome the opportunity to discuss NASH and 89 Bio.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, about 89 Bio, your company, and briefly a bit about your role at the company.
Sure. So I have been in the healthcare business and in biopharma and pharmaceuticals for roughly about 30 years in a range of roles spanning everything from commercial to R&D, to medical, as well as business development. And I joined 89 Bio about a little over 3 years ago, shortly after the company was founded in May of 2018. In fact, as the first employee here in the U.S. And I am currently the CEO of 89 Bio. And 89 Bio, our mission at the company is to develop and deliver best-in-class therapeutics to help patients with liver diseases and cardiometabolic diseases where they do not have optimal therapies. And the lead program we're focused on at 89 Bio is to develop a therapy for the treatment of NASH.
What is NASH for our listeners who may not be familiar with it? I understand it. Is it having to do with the liver?
Yes.
Okay.
So what NASH is, it's a form of a fatty liver disease. So it really stands for non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. But to simplify it, it's a progressive disease where fat accumulates in the liver. And what happens is over time, this fat keeps accumulating and the liver can't process it. And it translates into the liver getting inflamed. And over time, as the liver gets inflamed, in the later stages of NASH, it becomes fibrotic, which means there's a scarring in the liver, and the liver really cannot function. The challenge with it is, while it's a liver disease, Neil, it raises the risk of cardiovascular disease in addition to liver morbidity and mortality. And it's a disorder which is really underappreciated in this country because when you just look at fatty liver disease, there's roughly north of 70 million people with fatty livers. Now, about 20 million of them have this condition of NASH, and it is rapidly growing as, you know, unfortunately, because there's no effective therapy today on the market. Mm-hmm. It's expected by the end of this decade, you could have literally about 30 million people just in the U.S. with NASH. And a lot of this growth in this disorder is because as the obesity epidemic continues to grow, type 2 diabetes continues to grow, insulin resistance, all of these contribute to this liver disease called NASH.
Now, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, why the name non-alcoholic? I mean, there are other causes of fatty liver. Alcoholism causes fatty liver. Does this condition mimic alcoholism or sclerosis in some type of way? Is that why it's been called non-alcoholic?
So you're absolutely right. There are multiple reasons why your liver can get inflamed. The way alcohol results in that inflammatory process is slightly different. The end state of cirrhosis could be the same condition, but what we are focused on is patients where this kind of inflammatory process is being driven predominantly by fat deposition independent of because it's alcohol driven.
Is there any type of stigma attached to NASH? Was there a little bit of a lack of awareness? There are so many people suffering from it.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a little bit of a stigma because some people view NASH as a lifestyle disease, right? Because it's associated with obesity. Like over 80% of these patients have obesity. And in the absence of any approved treatments, very often what you see is the way to address it is through diet, exercise, etc., weight loss, managing glycemic control. But the reality is it's more than a lifestyle disease. Mm-hmm. These patients truly have metabolic dysregulation. A lot of them have high cholesterol, high triglycerides, diabetes, right? And really, when you think about the later stages of the disease, as you progress through the disease and your liver gets fibrotic and, worst case, cirrhotic, it's a pretty severe condition. So we believe these patients can do better, and really good, effective medications one day will hopefully help them.
Then I understand you're in phase 2B trials for a potential treatment for NASH as we speak. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are developing a therapy, which is a hormonal therapy, which we believe could really benefit these patients by addressing kind of fundamentally what's happening to their NASH, as well as a lot of these comorbidities I mentioned, which these patients have.
Now, when it comes to some of these comorbidities, is this compound going to exacerbate some of those, or is it going to work independent of those and just deal with the fatty deposits in the liver?
So, in fact, our therapy should actually not exacerbate, but in fact benefit and help them on these comorbidities. So the therapy we are developing is a hormone which is naturally found in the body, which is called FGF21 or fibroblast growth factor 21. And what this hormone does in the body, it regulates energy metabolism, carbohydrate metabolism, and lipid metabolism in the body. And specifically, in the liver, it's been shown that this hormone helps to burn fat and prevent new fat from being generated in the liver. But then importantly, across the body, it manages some of these metabolic markers like lipids, cholesterol, triglycerides, or fat in the blood. And what we have done is we have created a specifically engineered analog of this hormone with a very long half-life. So it can stay in the body. We inject it into the body, and then it can stay in the body for a long time period, and half-life between 3 and 4 days. So we can dose these patients once a week or once every 2 weeks, and then really allow this hormone to do kind of what it does in its natural state in the body. And the important thing is, as we developed this therapy, we were also very sensitive to making sure that it's well tolerated. And what we observed, Neil, in a proof of concept study we completed, which we announced the data last year, we saw really nice changes in what happens in the liver. In fact, we were reducing fat in the liver up to 70%. We were improving other markers of liver injury, some of the markers you look at, as well as we were reducing things like triglycerides and cholesterol in the blood. So it was kind of doing more than just what happens in the liver, but addressing some of these comorbidities, which is really kind of what the intent is. And then importantly, we showed a nice tolerability profile because, as I mentioned at the start, these patients, it's a chronic condition. So you will be on this therapy for a long time period. And so it's really important that any therapy for these patients with NASH is well tolerated.
Well, give us a website where listeners can go and learn much more about your company and possibly about these phase 2B trials that we just spoke of.
Sure. The website to go to is www.89bio.com. And you'll see more about the company as well as the molecule and the studies we have ongoing.
Well, I appreciate you joining us here on Health Professional Radio this evening, Rohan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the time, Neil. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download it, SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.